Hey there everyone, I hope you're doing great on this Friday. Today we are going to be painting some milkweed flower, and you can see I have a reference photo right here that I took from our garden last summer. So you can kind of tell with the petals that there's there's really six, but from the side angle there's kind of like three going up and three going down. So we're going to be kind of looking at the shape here too. The shape of the stem and the leaves. There's also some little buds on the ends that are really just simple oval shapes. So I'm going to be using some Canson watercolor paper and a size 0 blotter brush, and I'm also using gouache. You can use watercolor. If you do that, I would recommend sketching out some things like the leaves before you start, because the branch is going to be painted first. So you want to make sure if you have any leaves covering over the branch that you sketch those out first to leave it blank. So first we're just going to go in with this nice orange color and do some petal shapes. We're going to do 3 on the bottom like this, and then I'm going to do all of those first. So I'm going to go around the whole page doing just the bottom 3 petals, and then we'll go back in and finish the rest. So you can see it's just a really simple, I don't even know what this shape is called, but if you start out with the tip of your brush and then give some pressure and then let up, it'll make this kind of like skinny, almost like an oval but a teardrop combined. Just gives a really petal type shape, a typical petal. Another thing you can do to help kind of guide where your flowers go is to sketch out the branch before you start. So the main 2 branches that kind of make that Y shape. Then you'll kind of have a better idea of where to place your flowers. But you can always do it freehand. Either way, there's no perfect placement, so whichever you prefer is great. And I am going to speed some of this up because it's a pretty long process. Very simple but tedious. I'm also a pretty slow painter and drawer, so I thought I would spare you guys some time here. But you can see I'm just starting with that upper left cluster, and I am not doing it bloom for bloom with the picture. That's just kind of to see the overall shape of the whole like stem and the branches, and also just the overall shape of the flowers. Now I'm going back to that right side, and we'll start adding in those flowers. It's just a nice bright orange, so you could add a little bit of lemon yellow to it, or maybe you just have some bright orange straight out of the pan or 2, whichever kind of watercolor or gouache you're using. It's just a very simple orange color though. We grew these last year. My grandpa requested it, and they were so pretty. I wasn't really familiar with milkweed, but I was surprised by how pretty they are in person. It was amazing. So now we're going to be using that same orange color, and we're going to go back and make those top petals. So you kind of want to do 2 that are more in the front, and then you can see in the back I'm kind of adding a couple more. In a minute you'll be able to see a little better. That one was kind of in a weird spot, but it kind of starts looking like a crown shape. You've got like these 3 prongs in the front and then a couple in the back, and they're not connecting. We're leaving a little bit of room between them so that we can add the centers. And if you start connecting the petals too much, it's going to start just looking like a big blotch of paint. We don't want that. So when you leave a little bit of space, it really helps define the shape of the petals. So there you can kind of see a little better. It's almost like a crown just shooting out of the top. You want to leave that center empty, just like that. I really like using gouache, but I feel like I water it down way too much to the point it's almost watercolor most of the time anyways. So it's kind of funny, but I still like the option to be able to have it really opaque. So now I'm just going to use the same orange color and we're going to add in the buds. They are just little ovals. They don't all need to be the same size, but they're in a cluster at the end of the branches. Same on the other side. Just some little ovals in there. And now I'm going to mix up some brown. We're going to add in the stem. So you can see that first stem, they kind of make a Y shape. So just take your time and go slow. It's really nice with this thin brush. You can make a really, really narrow stem. So it kind of comes up from way to the right and then goes down. And the one on the left side is more of a straight angle towards us, so it's not going to be as curved quite as much as that right side. And then they'll meet down there. And you can give that one straight down a little bit of movement. I typically like to do some sort of curve just to make it look more natural, because usually stems aren't perfectly straight. Sometimes they are, but... So now we're gonna go take a look at these. They kind of all come together in one branch. It's like a really big cluster of flowers. And I didn't do it perfectly like that, but just to kind of, it helps to see how it is in real life. So now you're just going to go through and connect each individual flower. These stems are a little bit thinner than the main stem. Now we're going to connect these little buds back here, and I'm just going to kind of group them together, and then their stem is going to connect with that other bottom stem right there. Like that. And there's this little empty spot right here, so I'm just going to add in a few more little stems and we'll put some more buds right there. Just kind of fill that space in. And I'll go ahead and fill those back in real quick. Then we'll get back to the stems. So over here we're going to do the same thing and connect all those buds, or those blossoms I mean, together, and then connect them to the main stem. Then we'll connect the buds together. And now I'm going to mix up some green and start on the leaves. The leaves are very narrow, and you can kind of give it like a little bit of a jaggedy line to make it look like they are kind of like curled, I guess. And then they look more natural. And you just do it like a regular leaf shape, they don't look as realistic. Some of them can cover the branch. So like I was saying earlier, if you're using watercolor, you'll want to sketch out your leaves first because they will not cover up the brown. With the gouache, you can really layer it on there and make it really so you can't see that branch at all. So I'm going to do a longer leaf here. They're at all different angles, and so they're going to look like they're all different kind of widths and lengths. And adding, you can see in the picture, those jaggedy lines just makes it look like they're curved and they're not just flat leaves that you're looking at. And there's a couple bigger ones down here at the bottom. So as you go down the stem, the leaves do get longer, bigger. Alright, so up here I'm going to make one that looks like it's kind of folded over. So I'm first going to start with this loop, and then that right there is going to be the underside. So I connected that to make kind of like a triangle, and then this is going to be the top side of the leaf. So I'll fill in the whole thing, and then I'm going to go back through with a darker green for the top side. You kind of just make a line right there, and then fill it in. So you can kind of see it coming together now. That bottom side is going to be a lighter green, and the top side is going to be darker, so you can see kind of how it looks like it's curving towards us. And I'm just layering it right here to make sure the brown isn't showing through. And then with that lighter green, I'm gonna fill in the bottom side. So it just looks like a curling leaf. It actually is pretty simple to do, it just looks kind of tricky. And then I'll make a couple leaves behind the other leaves. So we'll do one right here. And that makes it look like it's on the back side of the plant. We'll add another one right here. A couple at the tops. You can make some behind the flowers. I do like to make sure it's dry before I do anything that's going to involve going behind the flowers, because if it's still wet, it will kind of blend together and it's going to make your orange have a green in it, and it just gets kind of muddy unless you're doing watercolor and you're going for a loose look. But this is more of a structured painting, so you want to make sure it's all the way dry before you do anything that might be touching the other layers of paint. And now I'm just going to take a yellow, it's like a mustardy yellow or a yellow ochre, and I'm going to add in the centers. Really, I'm just kind of dabbing that white spot that we left in the middle. Alright, now I'm going to take a darker orange and we're going to go back and add some details. So first we'll add some lines on those buds. If you remember from the picture, they just had a couple like little darker lines. And I'm going with the curve of the bud shape, so it's kind of like a half oval line. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing on the petals, just adding a few detail lines. You can do one down the middle of the petal and then a couple little ones kind of at the top, just to give it some shadows and more detail and texture to it. And now we're going to go back into the leaves and do the same thing, add some detail. Mix up a good green, a little bit darker than what we used before. Make a line down the center. Doesn't need to be perfect. So this is kind of optional. Sometimes I shade in a little bit more in the center, sometimes I go off to the side. Anything to just give it more of like a not really 3D, but sort of like that. Just to show the shadows and light. And once again, I'm not copying completely the picture, so I'm not taking my time to go in and completely copy each shadow and the placement, but just getting a general idea of how the leaves move and their colors and shapes and where the light hits them at. And then you can also just kind of use your imagination to make it your own. So on that one, I'm doing the top half. Just kind of makes it look like in the center it's a little bit folded or creased. And you can add some dark underneath too. Go back into the underside and add some more light paint to it. And the last thing we're going to do is go back into the branches. kind of darken them up a little bit. In some spots they're a little bit light. And this is the last step, so we are just about finished up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I would love for you to tag me if you create this painting yourself. You can tag me at Haley Belisle Design. My Instagram link is in the info. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you soon for the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.